and welcome to AleksConnects Creative Sandbox making WWE Superstars art. My name is Alex and I don't know, apparently we're continuing where we left off. So, yeah, check out the camera quickly to make sure that it's going to work. Okay, it works. Why am so freaking white? I mean, the white balance is definitely crazy, but can't do anything about it. I have pretty crappy webcam, so... And not enough lights, and also this super red color basically creates this weird contrast. It doesn't matter, we're not going to talk about that, so yeah. Okay, let's just quickly check out the sound. This super red color basically creates this weird contrast. It works! Good. So, okay, let's just, first the cool thing, I actually kind of noticed it only right now, that Streamlabs OBS basically now integrated chatbots inside, so this is something interesting that we might think about. Of course, I will integrate chatbot probably next stream. This stream, I just basically forgot about it, I just didn't notice it, so, yeah. So, yeah, today we will continue to study Steampunk again. As I said previously, I'm going to move things rather slowly. There's nowhere to rush. I'm still adjusting to everything, like regarding WWE. I'm still adjusting to everything that it comes down to the painting, that way that I'm using painting. So again, in previous session, in previous two sessions, again, the last session was by basically we got Steampunk to this level. I didn't have a chance to work on it besides, like, outside of the streams, unfortunately. So we're going to cover, like, we're just going to continue. What the heck was that? I'm spitting all over the place. So, yeah, the last place that we stopped with was basically trying to proportionally put CM Punk's proportions as proper as possible. There's still a long way to go. I kind of noticed a couple of problems, so I definitely made his nose like super small. We need to create a bigger bridge, but again, we will work on that after we will cover WWE Week. So again, first, as always, the first couple of minutes, hopefully in 30 minutes, in the first 30 minutes we will cover WWE topics, and then we will just continue with the creative stuff. Again, at some point, once I will get experience, I will probably talk about WWE Week throughout the creation process, but since right now, it's, for me, impossible to focus on creative stuff and then talk. It's just hard thing for now. So, it's going to be a slow transition. So yeah. Let's just start with WWE. First thing that we're going to cover is not going to be SmackDown, it's going to be Raw, of course. So today we need to cover only Raw, SmackDown, and the... How do you properly say it? Mixed Tag Challenge, yeah. So let's just go. So Raw was pretty action-packed. I mean, there's a lot of things happened on Raw. The show started with Dogs of War. I'm still calling them that way because if I'm going to name them Strowman, Ziggler, and McIntyre, it's going to took me for freaking 12 minutes or whatever. So it's much easier to call them Dogs of War. Commentators calling them a Strowman pack or Strowman team or Team Strowman or whatever, but Dogs of War kind of works for me perfectly. So they started the show. That's kind of it. They talked a lot, and after they talked, then we had Rollins versus McIntyre match, which basically ended by the destruction from the Ziggler, and Rollins won and qualified into the Crown Jewels World Cup. Whatever, so it was actually kind of clear. I definitely thought that, like, McIntyre would won regardless of anything in here, because he just, like, got back to WWE. He's definitely not going to be present through amongst the crazy amount of superstars. So yeah. So and also McIntyre ended the show, which was pretty cool. I mean, like, he started the show and he ended the show. It was pretty interesting. So, okay. I need to focus. I'm pretty disoriented right now. I overate, so it's pretty it's pretty hard to breathe. So Rollins won. Then the traction between the Shield members continued. Dean is definitely not happy at this point, and again, they are brotherhood, and there is a tension between like the Rollins and Dean Ambrose for the most part, because again, Rollins kind of called Ziggler a lunatic, and Dean Ambrose doesn't necessarily like that anymore. Like before that, he didn't care what other people thought about him, but since he got back from the injury, something's bothering him definitely. Like he missed on a lot of things, he lost a lot of opportunities, and now he's kind of lost in a shuffle and of the division superstars, and it's just it definitely weighs on him in terms of the storytelling. I mean, I don't know what this is all about in real life, but again, we're talking about the stories in here, and I'm speculating towards the stories, what these stories could go, where exactly they could move on, and whatever. So yeah, Brothers of Destruction answered to the EX. Their answer was quick and easy. 3 words for you is rest in peace. The same message Undertaker repeated in the end of the SmackDown. So then we saw Nia Jax with Ember Moon fought against Dana Brooke, and returning after 9-month injury, shoulder injury, Tamina. And Nia and Ember won the match, but it seems like Nia and Tamina is going to feud against each other, because I believe it's a good idea, because Tamina never had a chance to represent women's division at all. I mean, she never was a superstar type of the wrestler. She was always in the background. They tried to push her, but it was super slow, and then every time that they trying to push her, she getting an injury again and again and again. It just basically repeats itself, and she never got on top. I don't remember anything with her in terms of the storytelling. Like, I remember her with someone in a team. I remember she was probably with Alicia Fox, I don't remember. So again, Tamina is one of the women's wrestlers that basically has a lot of potential in terms of the skills and her presence in the ring, but unfortunately she doesn't get that push. So hopefully right now they will set her up with Nia, and they will continue to feud one-on-one. It's kind of a one power against the other power. It's actually going to be an interesting one. By the way, Tamina is actually here or not? Tamina not here. Where is Tamina though? Why she's not on Raw? Don't tell me that she's actually on the SmackDown roster, because weird things happening with the rosters. Yep, she's on the SmackDown roster, but apparently she's not. So, okay, now we need to place her under the Raw. It's interesting. No one said that she's going to be on Raw though. Officially, she's on SmackDown. She was on SmackDown roster. So yeah, and these type of roster things happening like weirdly. For instance, the Bellas, officially they are in SmackDown roster, but they are fighting on Raw, which is kind of a weirdest thing ever. So, yeah, yeah, Kevin Owens 100% out with an injury, double surgery, with the knee. It's super bad. I love Kevin Owens, and I hate the fact that, oh no, not fired, but injured. Hopefully they will return with Sami Zayn, but again, it all depends what type of extent of the injury with Sami Zayn. We still don't know what's up with Wyatt. Matt Hardy is probably actually quit, because I saw a WWE video with him that where he basically told his last words to the fans as a walking Matt Hardy. So basically, there's a good chance that he's not going to be back. Like, this is the actual it. So, yeah. Jason Jordan, I believe he has some type of a big injury that he might not get back at all. Like career-ending, potentially. The same as it happened with Tyson Kidd, which is going to be unfortunate. He definitely had a lot of potential. Like, he got pushed a lot, and I believe he. I like Chad Gable more than Jason Jordan, but Jason Jordan is definitely a capable one, so had potential. It's unfortunate when you see like the people's lives are changing that quickly. It's one of the topics that we definitely will discuss in the future, but like the whole story with Daniel Bryan getting the career-ending injury and then getting back, for me it was like actually like super inspiring, and I believe for most of the people too. And although I'm not like a wrestler or anything, but again, it's inspiring in general to have some type of like struggles and then overcoming those struggles throughout years and believing in yourself and continuing to push through, like, and fight for your dream and basically get there. It's definitely an inspiring thing to have. So yeah, continuing. Got distracted. So then we saw a couple of entries in the Battle Royal Women's preview, like the fact that Battle Royal is going to be on Evolution, WWE Evolution, and they basically tell us that Tori Wilson is going to be in this Battle Royal, whatever. So it's weird. I mean, she never was a good wrestler, but when she appeared on a Royal Rumble, Women's Royal Rumble, she actually kind of showed a couple of things. So she definitely has, like, I don't know, the athleticism, because she kind of coach or whatever. Yoga coach? I don't know. She coaches something, or she has her own gym. She basically, I believe, an entrepreneur. If I'm not missing something, it doesn't matter. So yeah, continuing. Then we saw a awesome promo of Ronda Rousey versus Bellas. They basically produced a pretty awesome talk. Ronda Rousey, again, you have to listen to this. I'm not going to say, talk about what exactly they said. It's awesome. The exchange of the personal things that they shared, how Ronda basically added the fuel to the fire, and so Bellas reacted pretty decently. I mean, it's actually all Ronda has basically won this mic battle, but that was in general pretty cool. I loved it a lot, so that was cool. And of course, the problem after that, Bellas kind of thought that Ronda Rousey is going to fight against them, or at least will attack them, and they basically brought their security team, which again got destroyed by Ronda Rousey only, which is again sometimes feels like unrealistically, but again, it's fine. I guess they're preparing Ronda Rousey to fight against Bellas, but again, I believe she could defeat Bellas with one hand tied behind her back, so it's not that big of a deal. Gable continues to steal Rude's gimmicks. It's just weird. I mean, he doesn't give anything for Bobby Roode to do at all. Like, everything that Bobby Roode says or tries to do, Gable is basically steals everything. And for now, Bobby Roode is kind of fine with it, but at some point, I believe it will piss him off, and there's going to be some type of altercation. I don't know where it's going, but it's an interesting dynamic regardless, and I'm happy for Chad Gable that at least he has something in the company, because again, I believe he is freaking awesome. I mean, he is the caliber of the wrestler like AJ Styles in the future might be. I mean, if he will continue to work, he has a pretty awesome wrestling skills, like the collegiate wrestler or whatever, like how they call it properly. So the amateur wrestler, and because of these skills, he's definitely capable a lot. And he actually has a super awesome timing in the ring. I mean, he definitely kind of reminds me of Kurt Angle at the beginning of his career. He has charisma. He has he can speak on a microphone. And he definitely works. And hopefully, company will invest time and effort in him. Again, he's super impressive. I mean, he definitely has a future. And it's a good thing that he's with Bobby Roode right now. It will help him. It will help him to grow confidence, being with such a big star as Bobby. So it's kind of a cool thing. So Ziggler versus Dean. Again, the winner again qualifies into a crown jewel thing, and Ziggler won the match because Dean Ambrose shoved Rollins. Final man to qualify for Raw. Yeah, there was a lot of shoving out there. So, and it basically created the altercation basically continues between Dean and Seth. It was pretty weird. Again, hoping they will fight against each other. This was my bad. Then we saw Corbin disrupted this altercation after Roman Reigns tried to involve. Seth and Dean kind of, under the Hydrotron, started to push each other, like, I don't know, like they wanted to fight. Then Roman Reigns tried to separate them, and then Baron Corbin basically distracted them and set the match for the main event, which we're going to talk about in the end of Raw. Then we saw Finn Balor fight again Jinder Mahal, which was a weird match, but still happy thing for Samir Singh and Sunil Singh. Now Samir is back to Sunil. So they are together now. There's 3 of them. Cool. And Alicia. Yeah, there's 4 of them, let's say. It's a pretty big team. I mean, Alicia definitely became stronger. Lashley interfered after the match and fought against Tyler Breeze. What? I guess that's kind of it. Then we saw Trish and Lita versus Alexa Bliss and Mickie James. Again, they talked pretty weirdly. Again, for some reason, Trish and Lita are pretty bad on microphone, and it's just not working. Every time that they're talking, it's like people are not reacting at all. It seems boring, and for me, it's fine. I mean, I'm usually feeding off energy of the audience, and if audience doesn't have an energy, I'm not getting it too. So it's usually kind of like, usually I'm adapting to everything, like, and in good promo is the promo that people are reacting to, and if there's no reaction, it seems like it's a bad promo. So for some reason, Trish and Lita is basically pretty bad and creating this feud, and maybe this was the reason why they decided to put them together, like Trish and Lita versus Alexa and Mickie, and not to make this separate match. For now, actually, it's pretty weird. It seems like the whole women's pay-per-view is going to consist of super big Royal Rumble or Battle Royale and couple of matches, and that's it. It's just weird. I mean, they had potential to create something unique, and they might ruin the chance. But I understand from the same part. I mean, I believe like women's division is not that pushed. I mean, in terms of the audience, I believe they have troubles with selling the tickets to the show based on only women's division, because there's like the men's division is so overpopulated throughout the years, and they are kind of represented as the main stars, regardless of anything, and people are putting more money into the men superstars than women superstars, and maybe because of this, it kind of creates a problem, and because of this they will kind of create weird matches and put a spectacle. It's definitely not going to be that many matches like 1-on-1. Usually there's going to be something like, I don't know, 2-on-2 or whatever. Of course we will see a Shayna Baszler versus Kairi Sane. Like, couple of matches 1-on-1 will definitely like attract a lot of attention, like Charlotte versus Becky, I believe. But like, some of the matches definitely going to be, I don't know, I believe it still will sell tickets. But again, I don't know what's up with money there, so we're not going to talk about it. So again, I'm still trying to figure out, like, and analyze the reasons why exactly they're doing this, like combining the Alexa Bliss with Mickie James against Trish and Lita, and why they didn't decided to create 2 separate matches. Maybe because they didn't have time, maybe because Alexa is still not like completely recovered from the injury, maybe they don't think that Lita or Trish will pull out the whole match, and they decided to create a tag team to make it a little bit more fine. I don't know. There's multiple reasons. Maybe because of the money. I don't know. It actually doesn't matter. Continue. So, AOP versus El Conquistador, which was the Kurt Angle. Supposed to be Kurt Angle, but it wasn't. So, and it was pretty interesting thing. I mean, yeah. Kurt Angle appeared in the vacation suit, not prepared for fighting. Baron Corbin put Kurt Angle in a match against AOP, and Kurt Angle said, okay, I don't have my gear, how I'm going to fight. And it was actually a pretty smart way to not put himself into the match, but someone else. I believe it was some type of referee, I don't know, it was weird. So, and not fighting against AOP, but putting out there a other person dressed like an El Conquistador. That was pretty interesting. I mean, at least it was fun and entertaining. So then we saw Ruby Riott fought against Natalya. No. I know that Ruby Riott got disqualified, but like I truly don't remember. Like I put in notes in here, but I really forgot what transpired. It's a shame. Yeah, doesn't matter. It's not important because it's not getting anywhere. Again, I mean, Natalya, Becky Lynch, and Natalya, Bayley, and Sasha basically joined against Ruby Riott squad, and maybe this feud will continue, maybe it's not. It's still weird. The weird things happening right now with women's division and with with the storylines overall. Because of the mixed tag challenge. There's a weird things happening in terms of the feuds. Nothing serious. The only serious feud that we have is Ronda Rousey against Bells, but I don't believe it's serious. It's more like leading up to Evolution or Crown Jewels. No, to the Evolution. Yeah. So the build-up is weird. So hopefully it will get somewhere. There's no permanent feud. The only permanent feud in WWE that we have right now that will continue for such a long period of time, I believe, it's Charlotte versus Becky. This is it. The rest of the feuds, they're kind of placeholder for, leading up to the pay-per-views or whatever. They're not consistent. Like, we don't have anything that could last from 1 to 5 pay-per-views or 1 to 3 pay-per-views. Everything gets resolved either with one match or whatever. It's weird. Okay, so Elias potentially will feud against Apollo Crews, which is interesting because Apollo Crews never got a chance after he got back. And again, we will talk about Apollo Crews later. I have my own thoughts about Apollo Crews. They're not necessarily positive ones. And because of this, it's still a good chance for the Apollo to show himself. He never got the chance to show himself throughout the WWE after he got called up from the NXT. I believe it was too early for him. He definitely should stay in NXT longer. It was a mistake to put him out, call him up that fast. I get that he had potential, but again, we see that this potential is not realized yet, and it was like a couple of years left, already, or a year. It's just waste of his potential. So he would definitely need to stay in NXT for a longer period of time, fight against a couple of guys, and actually build up to the main event maybe. And but again, work on the mic a little bit better, gain a little bit more confidence, and they just basically took him based on his athleticism and his hybrid skills, whatever this is. So I don't know. I believe it was a mistake. So and it's still a good thing for him to fight against Elias. Elias is not necessarily an awesome skilled wrestler. He's an old-school brawler, and because of this, it basically will create a pretty interesting dynamic. So hopefully it's going to be something interesting. So then we saw a Dogs of War versus The Shield in the main event, and there was a kind of slight depiction that Dogs of War are finished. I mean, in terms of the McIntyre, Claymore, Strowman in the end of the match after Strowman slammed Ziggler because they lost the match. So there is a good chance that this is the end for this trio. So it's not necessarily a good thing, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. So hopefully it's not going to result in traction between Dolph and McIntyre. Hopefully they will continue to be together as the tag team champions, and there's not going to be any, because once they will start to fight like each other, it will definitely break the tag team. And as singles wrestlers, they don't have place on Raw yet. They definitely need to stay together in order to be on top. So for now, so I don't know where it's going to go. So we'll see. So this is kind of it for the Raw. Let's just quickly talk about SmackDown. There's not that much to talk about SmackDown, which is weird because it was a 1000th episode. We saw a lot of awesome stuff. So the SmackDown basically started with Truth TV. Stephanie McMahon entered the ring and talked for a bit, and it was awesome. Then Shane entered. Then after Shane, McMahon himself, no chance, and people were super crazy about him, so it was pretty cool. So in general, it was awesome energy, and in the end, all McMahon family went on a dance break in an R-Truth Truth TV. So it was actually pretty awesome and fun stuff to have and to see. It was entertaining, and it was a good start for the show. Then we saw Styles and Bryan fought against Usos. This was, by the way, a super weird match. I was glad for the fact that Usos now back as a team, because again, as I said before, they're not fighting because Jamie right now is basically with Naomi involved with mixed tag team, and because of this they don't have like time for this tag team to put them in any type of feud. So because of this, I believe they wasn't present, but they had a chance, they gave him a chance, and it was actually pretty cool. So and it ended by unintentionally Usos won. And they won because Daniel Bryan unintentionally hit Styles, and Styles kind of like shoved Daniel Bryan, and Daniel Bryan got distracted, and it basically was kind of a weird thing, and Usos won. So again, continuing to build up the Styles versus Bryan feud on Crown Jewels. So Crown Jewel, not Crown Jewels. So then we saw all GMs. Together, Paige, Vicky Guerrero, excuse me, yeah, Theodore Long, with his weird stuff, John Laurinaitis, People Power, or People Power, People Power. I love John Laurinaitis, he's super fun. So, although he's not, but his passiveness basically makes me happy. People Power! I'm not going to do that, properly. So then we saw Evolution back together, Batista, Triple H, Randy Orton, and Ric Flair. It was sick, and it was awesome. They talked about a lot of stuff. Randy Orton basically said that he's the only relevant superstars here at this point, and for now. It's awesome. Then we saw a little bit of traction with Batista and Triple H. Like, the only thing that Triple H didn't do throughout the career is basically defeated Batista. So it might be a future main event for the WrestleMania. I don't know. Batista versus Triple H, weird. And this was the longest microphone talk from Batista, I believe, in his career. Again, he's not that comfortable on the mic, but he was pretty good. He started a little bit shaky, but then he kind of built up, and it was pretty cool. Overall, it was awesome to see all of them. Again, a lot of nostalgia goes into it because I actually was present during that time, and I watched WWE at that time when they were together, and it was awesome. It was awesome. It was definitely a awesome era and awesome time. So a lot of nostalgia. So then we saw Rusev versus Miz. It was basically kind of ended pretty quickly. They fought for the qualifying match in a World Cup on Crown Jewel, and Miz won because Aiden English interfered in the match, and Rusev basically lost. It was kind of, again, continued to building up Rusev versus Aiden thing. Then we saw a pretty weird kind of segment, I don't know, with Hawkins showing Edge his photo on the phone, and it was basically a remark to the Edge head when we had Edge, Kurt Hawkins, and whoa. I forgot the name. Come on. Seriously? How could I forget him? Where is he though? Oh, on SmackDown. Zack Ryder. Yeah, remember. So yeah, so three of them, Hawkins and Ryder, they were a tag team at some point when they began. They all had a long hair, and it was awesome time when they interfered on part of the Edge as an Edge head. So basically they kind of made a switcheroo between each other. It was awesome. It was awesome time. I definitely remember it the most. It was cool. So it was an interesting way to kind of remember that. So Cutting Edge, then we saw Cutting Edge with Edge. He basically tried to convince Becky Lynch that she is making mistake by focusing that much on being on top, and she might regret that in the future, and she definitely not going to like herself in the future. And Becky, she kind of like answered it in an awesome way by saying that she's not liking herself, she's actually loving herself, like she loves herself in terms of like yeah, she definitely kind of threw a bone back on the edge, or to the edge, whatever. My English today is super bad, sorry about that. So it was awesome. And then Charlotte interfered, and they kind of fought for a bit. Judges tried to, referees tried to pull them out from each other. It was overall it was cool. So again, SmackDown was pretty quick and hectic. New Day fought against the Bar for the championships, and guess what? The Bar now has titles, which is super disappointing because I didn't want for them to hold the title. But now they hold them, so it's super disappointing. I don't know where it's going. But again, seeing the Bar versus Usos might be an interesting, or seeing the Bar versus Harper and Rowan. I don't believe that they will be back soon. Maybe against Eric Young. I believe the reason why they decided to free New Day from the titles is because they might plan on creating a 3-on-3 feud against Sanity and New Day. This is definitely would be an awesome thing to have. So, but we don't know that. So then we saw a. By the way, the main reason why they lost is because Big Show joined the Bar, I believe. I don't know if it's permanent or temporary, but basically because of the Big Show, he basically entered. He choke slammed Kofi Kingston on the table. I believe it was Kofi Kingston. And because of this, he created a pretty decent distraction for the New Day, and New Day lost. It was kind of a shocker for me personally. I was like, what? Whatever. So then we saw a returning of the King, Rey Mysterio. So it was awesome. Rey Mysterio still got it. He messed up a couple of times, but I believe it was because of the Shinsuke, not because of the Rey. So in the end, it was like because of the miscommunication. But in most cases, Rey versus Shinsuke Nakamura, again, they fought for the place for the Crown Jewels. It was the last spot, so now we have the actual match for the Crown Jewels. This bet like the all participants in a World Cup. WWE World Cup, the weirdest name ever. And Rey won, and now he is the last member. So if I will remember it properly, it's going to be John Cena, Kurt Angle, Miz, Ziggler, Rey Mysterio, Randy Orton. 6 of them? Is it? Oh, Seth Rollins. And there's definitely has to be someone else. Who am I missing? AJ Styles. Yeah. So, if this is it, this is the all people that are going to be in the World Cup. I don't know how it's going to transpire. They try, like, I believe they will just put them one-on-one. And again, this is going to be a tournament. They will create teams, like one-on-one things, and it's basically will lead up to the winner. So it's going to be an interesting. Let's hope that they will pair them pretty in a pretty interesting and non-predictable way. So that's basically covers the SmackDown, and SmackDown basically finished it again with the Taker saying 3 words: "Rest in peace" again, and that's it. So people were kind of disappointed. I don't know. They thought that he's going to say something else, but oh, rest in peace, whatever. It was kind of cool. Then we saw a mixed tag thing. Natalia and Bobby Roode fight against Country Dominance. By the way, this was the worst mixed tag from like the beginning of the second season. I didn't like it at all. It was not that entertaining. They didn't talk that much. Matches were pretty bad. The audience was kind of weird. I don't know. It was weird. So Natalia Roode versus Country Dominance, and Natalia Roode basically lost. I don't know why I pictured that they won. So Country Dominance won. Then we saw Asuka versus Lana and Rusev, and Asuka won. Lana and Rusev lost. So they continue to be undefeated. So yeah, this is kind of it. This covers the WWE week, the first part of the week. Tomorrow we'll talk about the rest of the things WWE. So again, tomorrow we'll talk about NXT. We'll talk about the fact that NXT UK now is on. I don't know how exactly it's going to transpire. Like, do they are they going to replace the actual NXT and just like put the NXT UK like instead of it, or I don't know how exactly it's going to transpire, or they're going to connect 2 shows together, or they're going to be, again, they're I guess airing approximately at the same time with some type of a difference. So it's definitely something that I'm kind of interesting. So either way, it's going to be an awesome. That tomorrow we were going to talk about NXT UK, hopefully. We're going to talk about NXT, we're going to talk about Mae Young Classic, and we're going to talk about 205. So, again, 4 shows, you gotta be kidding me, there's a lot of things to talk about. So yeah, that's kind of covers the WWE thing, so, and let's just now switch to the creative part finally. Again, it took me much more time than I thought so, which is fine. Checking the sound and go. Creative part finally. Again, it took me much more time than I thought so. Go. So, today we will continue to work with, like, it took me 45 minutes, come on. Ugh. Actually, it took me about 35 minutes, because 8 minutes, I started at 8 or 10 minutes, whatever. So yeah, we'll continue with CM Punk, again, continue to work on studying portraits. Again, for now it's going to be super slow. There's nowhere to rush. I don't want to rush this, because if I want to study this, I want to study it the right way. I just don't want to rush it. So yeah, this place definitely needs to be, and probably this one is a little bit bigger. So, I'm pretty close to finishing its base. Once the base is finished... Oh, by the way, I forgot that I usually need to create a new window. I need to put this new window on top of the screen, and make it black and white. Because working with color, I kind of want to see what's up with black and white. I believe it's soft proofing. Yep, I set proofing settings on black and white, and it basically allows me to on grayscale, and it basically allows me to change this only for this. Let's just set it on the second screen, make it a full screen. No, get rid of the alt tabs. Show dockers, not showing dockers. Okay, good. Let me properly zoom it, and we'll continue. Okay, good. It works. So yep, go. Continue. Oh, again, my jaw it was broken at some point. I didn't give it a time to heal, and okay, right now, in order to make it right, we need to enable and disable soft proofing to get it back. So again, as I said before, right now I'm working primarily with colors, and for me this is kind of the first time working with it. I made a quick test before, so this was probably a quick test. So yep, this was a quick test, which is actually kind of a decent result. I mean, it's not bad. It has problems with proportions, but it still looks like Steampunk. The only problem is it's a little bit more cartoon-ish. I mean, cartoonish. It doesn't have proper proportions. It does. I would definitely work on this for a little bit more. But the main goal for me is just basically see how everything is going to work. Like I tried a couple of brushes in here and there. I could repaint this instead of drawing a new thing, but I decided, no, let's just draw a new thing because I need to understand how to work. I need to establish the process for studying. And what I did in here, in this illustration, like study, it was kind of hectic. I didn't even thought that I will get to the stage, as I said before. I just started it and randomly got to this level. It was actually kind of surprising personally for me. And I don't remember what I did first. I remember that I started with black and white, and only then set the colors and then worked with colors. But again, because like I worked from black and white to colors, we see these weird weird burned out colors, like they're created by linear dodge or just the dodge tool, which doesn't look right. So like we overburned the red in here, or the brown, which is a bad thing, and it will take me a lot of hours to cover this thing out, like up, and because of this it's better to actually start with color. And my main goal is to study color throughout these studies too, not just work with black and white. So because of this, for me personally, it's going to be much more beneficial if we will work from color. And sometimes we're going to check out the black and white values, just basically the values. So first starting with black and white, or with color, and continuing to the color. So I started with pretty dull colors, intentionally, because I don't want to go into the big extremes right away, and I guess continue. So again, I'm using guides for the purpose of, since I'm not focusing on putting down the proper proportions, for me it's not that important. For me, the most important thing that I'm going to study in this, as I said before, every person, when he or she decides to study something, we need to understand what exactly we need to learn from it. And proportions is something that basically you will develop throughout the years. You don't want to focus on working with proportions only. So if proportions basically, if the fact that you're not good with proportions doesn't allow you to produce a proper work, it basically kind of creates this negative feeling because you're not going to be able to produce a proper results. It will stop you from achieving any type of result, because if your proportions are bad, your drawing is not going to look right. If your drawing is not going to look right, your painting is going to be bad, you're going to feel bad, and you're not going to gain anything positive from it. In order to gain something positive from it, I decided to focus on only a couple of elements. The first element that I'm going to focus on is rendering. So I actually want to study rendering. This is something that I have small experience in. I rendered throughout my time only a couple of works, truly rendered them. So I don't have a crazy experience in rendering, and by doing these studies for now, during these streams, I hopefully will get the rendering experience. Also, this rendering experience is not just going to be a simple rendering experience. This rendering experience is going to involve not how to create a form, but what type of brushes to use in order to create a form. We're actually going to put and study a little bit and test a little bit more brush work too. So we're going to work with rendering as a brush work too. It all comes down to my I probably never showed it here. It's probably better to show it. So these are our portrait steps. This is a portrait pipeline. These are our Boolean operations that I'm studying. I finished studying on Twitch, and for now we're working the perspective there. These are the thing that I studied with brushes basically, and recreated those brushes in Krita again. Yeah. So this theory material that I came up with on Twitch, so fundamentals of art, and for now what I'm focusing on, so on Twitch I'm focusing on perspective, and on Twitch I'm focusing on construction only. So it's important to understand perspective, it's important to understand primitives, how they're constructed, how Boolean operations are working in order to go from complex to, or from simple to complex, and etc. Right here on these streams, I want to focus on form, and especially on not on lighting and perspective necessarily, but on the actual form control. So I will try to think about where is the highlights, where the light side, where the halftone, where is the terminator, where the form shadow, where the custom shadows are, where are exactly the ambient lights. And it's not going to be step-by-step process where I'm trying to figure out where they're placed and where their light actually is. It's going to be a little bit more intuitive way to understand how to work with form intuitively. So intuitive way to working with form, not necessarily a a controlled way. Controlled way is more going to be out there in perspective on Twitch. Right here I'm going to focus more on the intuitive stuff. So just studying things by looking at them, which is not something that I like, but I believe this is something that I definitely like, and I need to do that regardless. And by doing this throughout the streams, it's actually going to give me a little bit more motivation. So separately, it's not interesting for me to study photos, just by overpainting them or doing something with them. It's not I don't believe that I'm learning something from it. But since now I have this understanding of the form, I also gain a new understanding of color. That color, I already knew about color basics. New understanding that we added is color harmony. The fact that we need to think about color presentation, we need to think about color usage, color interaction, and color control. Again, if you want to know what I'm talking about, just check out the Creative Sandbox streams from YouTube. So color harmony is definitely something that I will cover here. I will understand how to work with color wheel better. So again, it's in most cases what I will do is a practical experience, just a practical experience. So the same that I'm working with perspective, but with perspective it's practical, but it's at the same time we need to think about it a lot before we will utilize it. But right here on WWE topic streams, making WWE superstars, while making those superstars I will try to think about the color basics, I will try to think about materials a little bit, I will think about color or control of materials and textures, which is again the brushwork, which is the rendering itself, with combination with form control. So again, we'll think about brush basics, brush control, and I'm going to use my personal approach to the brushes to work with it. So again, all this theory, not going to be applied in a direct way. It's more like in indirect way. So I'm not going to talk about like, okay, I'm going to create a super awesome line in here and it's going to create a highlight in here and whatever. It's probably going to be more like, okay, I'm looking at this photo, I'm analyzing it, and I'm putting brush strokes in here, and I'm trying to make those brush strokes look form oriented, and actually show the form with the brush, like we did in here, like we did for the hair. So it actually creates some type of a dynamic. For now I'm going to just like draw what I see, and a little bit later, once I will get experience, I will try to make it a little bit more personalized. I mean, by that I mean, I will try to think about rendering fall off. I will think about, okay, this one needs to be super detailed, the rest is going to be less detailed, and etc. But for now, I don't want to think about it because there's still a lot of things to kind of learn. Yeah. And I'm talking usually more that I'm doing things, which is, for me personally, it's a good thing. I don't know how about you though. For you it might be super annoying, but again, if you don't like it, don't watch it. So usually all my talk that I'm going through, it helps me to understand what to do. It creates a, yeah, by the way, we're not going to color pick. We're not going to color pick, so we need to actually come up with the colors on our own, which is a hard thing to do. So, okay, let's think, what is the next step though? It's not going to be an easy decision where exactly to stop this and go for the next one. But I believe we're actually out there already. So I believe it's actually time to go to the next stage. So we have about an hour till the end of the session. Usually these are 2-hour sessions. And hopefully throughout this hour, if I'm not going to overthink things, because usually one of the reasons why I'm not getting anywhere or getting there slowly is because I'm overthinking things. And it's usually reflected throughout my speaking and talking. I'm repeating myself sometimes, which basically helps me to gain a little bit more, I guess, confidence. So yeah, let's just start. So in terms of the colors, in terms of the proportions, I believe we have it. I mean, the rest is going to be partially covered a little bit later. So his mustaches are actually a little bit lower. They actually go here. That means that lip actually there. So the nose. So let me check final proportions, and we'll continue probably to the next one. I also will try not to move it that much. I need to learn how to work with the static image and not necessarily moving it or zooming in out, zooming in. I need to learn how to work with this. So from far it works fine. Ow, 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 my ears. Hey, oh. Sometimes if you're not properly setting the headphones, your ears are starting to hurt a lot. Oh, damn it. Ugh. Wait a second. It's unplanned disturbance. Whew. Continue. Okay, so I believe we actually could proceed. So I still will check a couple of proportions and then we will go. So the eye probably needs to be a little bit lower. This eye. Yeah, the eyes definitely needs to be lower. This is one of the problems with it, so let's just make it a little bit lower. The eye itself, not the brow though. This part only. Again, as I said before, it's all about subtleties. It's probably too subtle though. Okay, now it works. Actually, proportionally it works a little bit better. Even if we're mirroring things. Yeah, let's just now zoom in and work on this area because we need to cover this area with first, I guess we're putting a color of the skin and then on top of it the color of the eyebrow. Again, eyebrow is basically almost invisible. We're barely seeing it. There's also a pretty big shadow in here. One of the things that it's pretty hard for me is how to separate looking and drawing by looking and actually like implementing some type of my personal changes. It's a delicate balance usually, because if I'm just going to draw what I see, at some point I will get stuck. So because of this, I kind of want to implement something new and personal, like actually implement personal decisions in here somehow. And what I mean by that is for instance, if I will render this eye, I want to make sure that this eye is not like if this eye doesn't make sense, right, like the form of the eye doesn't make sense in here, I could create my own personal description of the form. So I mean, these type of decisions. Again, it's going to be a slow process. There's nowhere to rush yet. This is the problem with painting and drawing overall, like with learning. You want to rush things, especially like especially nowadays. We don't want to get quick results. No one likes to sit for a couple of years by learning one subject. You want to go over a certain subject in a couple of months and finish with it, so never go back to it again. But with painting, it's a constant, never-changing learning curve. You're never gonna go back to the fundamentals. And that's what makes it interesting, but at the same time kind of scary. That means that there's no limit to what you can do. And when there's no limit, there's less control. These details that I'm putting right now is actually unimportant. I don't know why I'm working with them. It's just like the overall image. So yeah, I guess it's time. So as I said before, I decided that the first kind of the draft of the proportions and basic dull colors I'm going to put with drawing materials. So I'm going to use my charcoal brushes, or the graphite. They actually kind of called graphite. Graphite sticks, the actual pencil, and that's it. So, and of course, if I need to use erasers, use erasers. So, the next stage is actually now starting to work with the drawing materials. or painting materials. So now we're going into the painting wet. Dry painting I'm going to usually use to create textures. So wet materials is going to be used to actually create, like to put down the forms and actually render stuff. So the problem now is the fact that we probably need to overpaint everything from the ground up. So for instance, right here we need to go into the darker values because we have pretty light values in here, and we need to have a pretty dark base overall. And this is kind of a problem because I don't know how exactly to do that. I'm overthinking a lot of things, and when I go into this overthinking mode, it basically freezes me. It just slows me down. I know that if I will just shut up and work, I will get to this kind of result. Because again, I turn on the music and I just lost myself in this picture. That's it. And in result, I get somewhere. If I'm trying to justify every single move, this thing happens. I'm getting frustrated. I feel like I need to have control, but I don't have it necessarily. I don't want to just give up to the creative process and finish it randomly, because that way I'm not going to control it. So again, there's a lot of like psychological stuff goes into it. And for me, painting and drawing always, like the art part always was a like psychological struggle. It was never a problem how to draw and how to paint. It was how to look at this and how to perceive it, how to whatever. So let's think. Yeah, I'm putting a couple of more proportions. I don't know, should I actually work with the separate layer? It's kind of a pretty good question. I guess I could. Let's save and go into the next layer. It's better to actually kind of save steps, I believe. Layer steps. So yeah, this was our first step. To basically put down the proportions right. Now it's time to go to the next stage, which is now actually working with values and actually working with colors. So for that we're going to use not drawing materials but the actual painting materials, and as a base I guess we could take something that's good to create a pretty big shapes right away, which means that it's better to use our sketch paint wet, which exactly created for it, to create a big shapes. Oh snap, I'm working on a different layer. The cool thing is that we already have like established proportions, which is a good thing. I wish, like, what if I will do this? Like, select opaque, hide the selection. And work inside of it without thinking about the edges. Again, these brush strokes create pretty cool effect, but for now we're not going into this effect. We're going to create transitions a little bit later. Right now we're just pulling out the shapes and the values for those shapes. Since this is a little bit darker, I'm pretty scared to go super dark yet. I don't want to go super dark right away. We could though. I don't know. Why not? Again, we're working with values. For now we're just putting the values down. They are much darker. In previous session, when I in the first session that I created, it was a pretty big problem with lags with the brushes because they are pretty slow. I guess it could be a good idea to work on a background first. Yeah, let's just go into the background. So we could change the background anytime. So let's just make a certain part of the background darker, certain part of the background lighter, by using the same brush. Is it working? Oh, it isn't because we have a selection. Yep. So now it works. Okay, it's going to lag. It is going to lag a lot, so we're probably better... I don't believe that instant preview is going to help us though. Usually instant preview... Oh no, it actually works. Yep. Usually you need to turn on the instant preview when you're working with big brushes and they're lagging. I don't believe that it's that dark though. Again, we could create our own version of it. It's not big of a deal. Yeah, because of the instant preview, it's kind of lags a bit. It's actually lags more than a bit. Hopefully the stream is not going to just basically collapse. No, snap, no, I'm going to get rid of the instant preview. It eats up a lot of memory. It's better slowly but surely draw things here. This is a shame. The fact that my brushes are not working properly. In terms of the speed. They have to work though. They have full rotation. We could reduce auto spacing and precision. It could make them faster. But I kind of like how they look in this particular way. We're going to work on background later. I believe I actually made it too dark. Definitely needs to be lighter. Skibbity boom. Yeah, things are definitely lagging. It's pretty bad. Seems like it's lighter though. Yep, it's definitely lighter. A little bit lighter. Because the color of the background is going to help us to work with the present color, not to confuse it, and present values. And work with whatever we see. Okay, we could keep it that way. I'm looking at values right away. Yeah, it kind of works. Go continue. So, which means that this part needs to be much darker too in values. It's going to be super dark. Okay, this is not here. Needs to be here. Okay, select opaque again, layers hidden, don't want to go outside of the area. Yeah, right now I'm trying to put down the values. I guess we will change colors a little bit later. Although putting down the proper colors could be a good idea right away too. And I guess it's a bad idea to start with hair. First we need to lay down the colors for the skin. And then work with hair. Again, I'm still adjusting, still learning how to properly do it. I don't know. Because again, it's all about the psychology problem. I don't have troubles with like painting this type of level of work. It's not actually not that hard. What I'm having troubles with is the psychological aspect of approaching things in a proper way. So I mean, it's all about understanding what you're doing and making the proper decisions on a go. And for me, one of the problems that I have, I guess, is not necessarily a clear understanding. It's yeah, it's going to be a hard one. I'm not going to create a proper colors right away. The problem with human skin, though, it has so many color variations that is just crazy. It could be a good idea to have a palette with skin, but what I want to do is actually like visually learn what type of proper colors to put there. By experimenting, putting colors and like figuring out, okay, am I putting in proper colors down or I'm mistaking? Again, it's kind of yellowish. And it's not yellowish everywhere though. Since right now, I don't believe that we need to think about texture of the brush at this point. Maybe because of this, it could be a good idea to not to work with brushes at all, and give some take something flat, and work with something flat. It's going to be much faster. But at the same time, like every layer that we created, even this layer with the chalky feel, it will continue to the finished work, and it will produce a layer on top of the layer of interesting textures. And when they will overlap, it potentially could create a pretty interesting effect. So because of this, I don't necessarily want to. The thing is, I'm changing value barely. I mean, I'm looking right now there at the value scale, and actually I'm not creating that many changes in value. I mean, it's almost the same value as it already is. The only, like, the saturation is a little bit bigger. Okay, it's a little bit reddish in here. It's also reddish in here. Okay, we're not going to think about the dark side yet. The combination of two somewhere in here. Then I might just basically color pick it and use it. Okay, this is the thing, putting shapes down. And again, if I would work with values, it would be much easier. Okay, I definitely not putting proper values. It needs to be much darker. A couple of tones darker. But again, right now I'm just, for the most part, kind of setting a base. Once this base is basically set up, I could go into the dark. Maybe we need to hide selection there too, not to create lags. Oh, we actually not necessarily have lags. They're not that. They're less present if the selection is disabled, of course, because right here I disabled selection, but they're not. Okay, it's just again, right here we have warmer tones. They're going to be darker, but warmer. It's pretty hard to work with colors right away. I mean, there's so many things to think about. You need to think about colors. And you need to think about what values those colors have. This is kind of a crazy big problem. Seems like this thing is much redder. But it's just because it creates a pretty interesting contrast. This part is pretty close to the bone, and where is the bone, it's not going to be red. I'm not trying to render things yet, it's pretty early for that. But sometimes you're getting into this mode when, okay, whatever, I'm going to render things. But first you need to set up proper values. Because of this, again, I need to go through this process a couple of times, analyze what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing right, learn from my mistakes, and then and only then I will be able to make proper decisions on a go, like right away. Right now it's definitely not working in terms of the proper decisions. I'm 100% sure that I'm not making the right ones. Like for me, everything needs to have a process. If I don't have a process, I'm struggling. And by process I mean step by step, understanding what I'm doing now, what is the next stage. And with studying, it's not necessarily controlled. I mean, you could reverse engineer the actual creative process. You could just take a creative process, regular creative process, and reverse engineer it and apply it to the studying. And usually it actually happens in the opposite direction. Usually you will start with studying, and then like when you understand how to work with studies, you will reverse engineer studies into the creating. But for me it was completely different. At the beginning it was probably from studying, but I always focused more on creative part than study part. Actually, almost everything needs to be that dark. So except a couple of areas, of course. And it's a good way for me to experiment the things that I still don't know how to work with. I don't have problems with structural rendering. I mean, when we start with somewhere like with the subject and we're making it complex and complex and complex, it's actually not going to be. This is, by the way, an interesting place. Yeah, it definitely needs to be reddish. But again, the problem with colors is that they all work in comparison. If you have a good comparison, then you will put a proper colors. I believe guides needs to be hidden more. I'm not relying on them that much at this point. They're kind of actually distracting. Yeah, it definitely got darker, but it definitely needs to be much darker. And I guess, like, this is the part, for me personally, that I'm struggling with. For me, it needs to be controlled. And I guess at this point I'm not sure how to study properly yet. I didn't study it that way almost at all. I focused more on understanding how to create stuff. For me, studying wasn't... And I studied throughout the creation. So... It's a pretty weird way to study though, while creating. Because it will take you like much more time than it would take you if you would just do a regular study. Again, we could take our own artistic license and colors as long as they like look fine. Which is another way to say that I'm not going to be able to create a proper color, so I will make up my own. Kind of. But again, we definitely could do that. As long as we create a decent color harmony. And it's pretty easy to make things look muddy. It's a good thing that we're not experimenting with colors that much. In most cases we have like solid ones. Okay. This needs to be red-ish. Nose is definitely warmer. And again, it's all about subtleties, and it's pretty hard to achieve those subtleties when you don't have that much experience. But again, we need to start somewhere. I'm not going to go into the super darks, but I definitely need to start to do that. I mean, I believe those darks is going to be warm. This is the place where there's almost nothing to talk about. I mean, I'm trying to focus on making stuff proper way. It would be better if I had like more zoom available. Okay, I'm looking at values right now, and actually it starts to I'm probably not building form in a proper way though, but it's at least it starts to build, which is a good thing. Values. It seems like this part is too warm. Again, we always could tone this warmth down. The main thing is to figure out the proper values. And not to work with just the black and white, but actually work with colors. It will create better results overall. we could think about creating highlights already, just for the sake of like creating illusions, because there are going to be places where highlights are going to be present. Stop. They're actually here. Okay, now figured out the problem with proportions. Hair is much bigger in here. It's pretty early to say what's going to be next. I mean, in terms of who we're going to draw next, before we'll finish Steampunk. But as I said previously, I already know what exactly I'm going to do next in terms of like who exactly we're going to draw. The next person that we're going to draw is going to be AJ. It's a good way for me, as I said before, to quickly go through, not quickly, but slowly go through the WWE superstars that are not relevant in terms of the fact that they are quit WWE or got fired. And it's better for me to work with them as a testing ground for me. Once I will go through those tests, I will get a little bit more experience, and then we'll start to actually work on current WWE superstars, which will hopefully give a little bit more attention to the streams overall with time. Cool thing is, right here we're actually able to erase things, because we already have a layer under it, so it's not going to erase it to the background. It's pretty hard to come up with the proper colors and places. I believe this actually needs to be, again, it seems like it's lighter, but as we remember, everything works in comparison, and it's pretty hard to right away create a proper values. And again, I'm working with values and with colors at the same time, and for me it's the first time doing this. It's super uncomfortable. Okay, this thing definitely needs to be darker. Okay. It's all about comparison. I believe you're barely seeing where exactly I'm moving my brush. No, it's actually clear. It's in here. Or not. It seems like it's much darker. Still. Okay, yeah, it needs to be darker here. Okay, the main thing is not to go into the textures that much. I mean, it's a good thing that we are thinking about textures already, and I'm trying to put proper marks down. I'm trying to actually control this. Yeah, I definitely created super desaturated colors. I probably should start with a little bit more warmth. This is the first mistake, I guess. I started with dull colors intentionally to leave a room for improvement. But I guess I probably should to guess the middle tone a little bit better than to just put this type of a dull color, because again, choosing a proper color like as a base, it's going to give us just better, much better results. And because I right away chose in proper colors, it creates this kind of a pretty crazy big problem right at the beginning. Yeah, this side is definitely needs to be darker. 100%. But again, we will make it darker later. Highlight. Good to use the same dark from here. To establish this area, which is super mega dark. We're almost not seeing the big portion of the eye. Try to go that far though, but I see these are eyebrows and I believe they need to be a little bit darker. So is this area. It all will start to make sense once we will start to detail things. Right now it's all like just soft transitions with a couple of hard ones. I will try to push form slowly. Okay, the eye. The eye kind of actually seems like this. kind of a pinkish color. The same goes with this one, but it's dark pink. There's definitely kind of an unnatural warmth to it. A little bit lighter tone, probably supposed to be here. Darker. Maybe more color. Nope, not more. Slightly desaturated. Of course, it would be much easier if I would have a actual color palette to work with, but I intentionally not using it to challenge myself. Why would I use color palette? Please tell me. I need to figure out what, like, the more I will do this, the better I will understand where exactly the skin tone needs to be. And you need to understand that skin color is going to constantly change depending on the conditions of the environment. But we still need to understand where to start at least. And with this particular instance, like, the more I'm going to do this, like, manually, without color picking, the better I will understand where I need to start with colors. Yeah, it's a little bit warmer. It's a good way to evaluate your colors, okay, it's not that. Like, even this place, like, it seems like it's warm, which makes it more saturated than it seems, but again, it all works in contrast with something that's there. Even like figuring out this color, I mean, it's white-ish, but does it cool, or it's warm? We're definitely not going to go into the opposite spectrum, which would be a good idea though, to create an interesting warm, cool contrast. I guess we could. Let's just like add a little bit of personal stuff, personal touch, because I don't believe that we have any cool colors in here at all. I mean, we have cool versions of the worms, but by worms I mean worm colors, not the actual worms. But it could be a good idea to actually start to add some cools. They're going to be slightly cool, but they're going to be cool. Again, getting back to the color harmony, so the quickest way to go from this to this so yeah, right here is a little bit so we're somewhere in this area and we're going into this area, so we're starting with something like this, which is somewhere here, and with a little bit more darker values, and then we need to go from here to this color. So ideally it will go somewhere, it all depends on the value step, and yeah, it's approximately the same value that I chose. I will work with color harmony a little bit later. Right now I'm not 100% sure how to properly explain it. I'm still kind of digesting the information that I got. Snap, redraw. Yeah, making this area cool, it's actually a good idea. Because we definitely need to add a little bit more balance of cools and worms. And since we don't have cools right here at all, like the actual cool colors, just only worm versions of them. We could add the same thing to the eye. I'll look first. Okay, it's not that. Yeah, probably should work with the precision mode to not like press too much on the stylus to have a little bit more control. Yeah, and right here we actually have a pretty interesting balance between cool and warm. Okay, this part is definitely going to be a worm. Not everywhere is going to work. Right here, for instance, it's not necessarily works. Although we will make it work. Again, right now we're not thinking about textures. Let's just put a highlight area. I'm not thinking about... Yeah, we're not going to create any highlights in here. It's going to be created by details. And also, I don't believe that they're going to be cool. I will try to make them cool for now. But if it's not going to work, then we will come up with some type of change. Yeah, the reason, usually I believe we need to start, I don't know, there's multiple methods how you could work with studying. Again, every type of thing you need to approach a little bit differently. I'm not 100% sure how to properly approach, for instance, studying, because you have so much information and you need to learn how to simplify it. And I don't have troubles with like studying from the ground up when I don't have information. But if I have information, if it's too much, I don't know how to handle it. So, and it's all about learning how to do that. Seems like it's warm here. Oh snap! It seems like it's super dark and it actually needs to be less saturated. Oh snap! Yeah. Time flies by when you're painting and drawing, so it's pretty close to the end of the session. Let's just try to get this somewhere and slowly finish it. And we'll continue in the next session, which is again tomorrow. If nothing will change, hopefully not. it's much darker here. Pretty hard to apply some type of artistic license to this area. Just create random shapes. It needs to work with form. Oh no, not that dark. Okay, the last thing that I will do is probably we need to establish the eyes. Okay, it's too much of a highlight. We need to tone it down a little bit. It's visible, but it's not like blinding. Same goes with this. Of course, the cool thing is that I'm learning how to work with colors right away. It's not an easy task to do. I don't believe that there is a sad thing about it. I mean, as long as you're doing something that helps you to grow, it's a good thing. The rest is just finding the balance between creating stuff and studying. Sometimes it's not easy. You will spend it studying. Like, throughout the years, I spent so much time on studying that I forgot the main reason why I started to draw, to create my own stuff. And it took me a lot of time to get back to it. And because of this, it basically got me to the point that I started to look at studying as the bad thing that distracts me from something that I need to do. And now I need to get back to that, so it's a weird roller coaster. The shapes right here is completely broken. I mean, it's not clear what exactly the thing, because it needs to be much darker. There's not that big of a transition in here actually in values. When you put too many transitions, it's too much contrast. It just seems weird. It's actually like approximately. Yeah, this area is just much darker, and this area is just much darker. It's like crazy dark. It's almost as dark as this area. But it's warmer. Okay, when you're working with colors, you're not seeing values separately. And colors are changing values, perceived, like the precision of the values. Sometimes it's confusing. It seems like you're drawing the proper thing, but it turns out that nope, it's much darker. You just don't see this dark yet. Builds up gradually. The more your eye gets used to the things that you see. Yeah, probably don't want to focus on the neck. This is not something that I need to do. Neck is something that we could work with later. It's not the most important thing here. Once we'll figure out the proper value for this part, we will use it to make this area darker. We can do this already, because the values are definitely darker here, especially because of the tattoos. Warmth is not going to be present in the areas of the bones. Well, at least it will be less visible. Darker. I don't like how it's too separated. Oh snap. Redraw. Yeah, we have to finish. We're already past 2 hours. This is pretty crazy process. I mean, you get stuck with this for long hours. Try to perfect it and perfect it until it looks perfect. Never going to look perfect though. I guess it's not supposed to look perfect either. Okay, so yeah, let's just keep it at that, and let's just quickly work on the eye. We need to make it super dark and figure out the color of the eye. So I don't know what exactly, like what are exactly the color of the steampunk's eyes. Probably brown, and because of this I believe we need to just accentuate them a little bit better. We will work with detailing and make it like look fine. In this particular instance, it's not the goal. The goal is just make this area a little bit darker to create. Because again, remember this is the main area for us. And if this area doesn't look right, Sandbox never going to look right. Okay, so here we're probably going to go with this, make it darker. It needs to be much darker. Less warm. Oh no, probably making a mistake though. Although no, this area actually is supposed to be darker. Yeah, it's ugh. I don't want to go into the details yet, it's just too early. But sometimes in order to make things look right, you need to set up a couple of details. I'll just smooth out a couple of elements and slowly finish on that note this part of the session. And we'll continue tomorrow from where we're left off. I don't believe that I will have time to work on it outside of the streams. And I kinda don't want to. I actually want to work within streams. It's actually better for me personally. Skibbity boom. Yeah, we're going to work with details a little bit later. But it's starting to go somewhere at least. I mean, right now it's going to be a pretty hard transition. Of course we didn't work on all areas. There's still, like, I completely left out the ear area. But again, I believe it's better to actually keep it on tomorrow, till tomorrow. My eye is kind of a little bit blind to certain changes at this point, and I will start to make a lot of mistakes. I'm sure of it. Like right now, for instance, I'm going into details, which is the mistake. Don't need to go there. Also, I will look out into look up to the chatbot, whatever it is, and how exactly we need to implement it. If it's going to, no, it's not going to work the same. I don't know how to work with the chatbot in here on YouTube. I have chatbots for Twitch. For that, you need to create a separate account. I don't know how this chatbot works, so it's going to be a learning experience. And I get that right now it's not important because no one is present during my streams, so it's just me doing the stuff. So because of it, it's irrelevant what type of chatbot that I'm going to use, but it's a good way to have one still. Okay, add a couple of details to the ear. I believe it's a good idea. Come on, man. You have to finish already. Again, it's pretty hard to stop once you are on track. It's like... It's actually hard to stop, personally. But I need to. Okay, so with the beard, I believe it actually needs to be bigger. Of course, it still seems too small. Like, and this is probably one of the reasons why it's not working. But once we will add a little bit more depth to the beard, it will start to look better. Right now, it's just like there's no depth to it. It's just dark brown thing. Same goes with the hair though. So the last thing that I will do is probably work on the nose, because nose is just like completely bad. It looks awful. Let's just make things full screen to go closer. And most of the problems for the nose is just the fact that one of the reasons why it doesn't look right is because it doesn't have highlight first, and it doesn't have seriously, needs to be called the cool one. So there's also a darker area in here. Side of the nose that basically turns it, creates a form. Without it, it's like this nose doesn't have a form at all. It's a little bit darker here. Not that dark, probably. Again, for some reason the test version was much easier. I spent like a decent amount of hours on it, but it was easier than this. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm putting more pressure to this because of the fact that I want to control things and not necessarily sometimes being able to. Like establish proper control. Maybe because I'm working slower might result my just make this one barely visible. It's definitely too much. It's like I went through like to details. It's just too early at this point. Yeah, I guess that's it. I don't know. Again, we need to finish up the session, like at least in 2 minutes. There's no point of continue it. I mean, I killed my hand. It still didn't recover from the previous drawings and paintings, so I have to be careful with how I'm approaching it. Yeah, this area is probably pinkish, and because of this it doesn't seem like I'm choosing proper colors. It's still desaturated pink, but it's a pink. Why this area doesn't want to overpaint? It's like it's something oh. Okay, apparently the selection thing ruins everything. Yep, it was a selection in here and basically distracted me from creating this batter transition. Actually, we could get rid of the selection now. I mean, we don't need it anymore. We kind of established the thing. So we still have a lot of kind of things, but again, if we're going to go into the close-up, it's still kind of an interesting transition. Like we have a little bit more texture from the previous steps, and then we have a couple of basic brush strokes, and then when we start to build an actual brush strokes on top and create a final one, like finalize it, it's definitely going to look much better. The last thing that I will do though is create a shadow under the because it's definitely there. can't fight it. It actually seems much more tilted. Okay, that's it for now. I guess, yeah, we'll continue to do this next session. So let's just turn off the thing and look up the result. Okay, like from far it actually looks pretty decent. I mean, even like considering the fact that it's still like not even the middle stage of it, it's still going somewhere, and we kind of build up the proper basic, like the base. And in terms of the values, it's actually rather accurate. No, not 100% accurate. So we definitely need to go darker from this side. We definitely need to go darker in here. But when it comes down to the basic values, they're kind of established, which is a good thing. So I believe we don't need to go lighter. Maybe we will go lighter with the highlights. But in most cases, we're not going to go lighter, which is a cool thing. A little bit better define the shape of the ear, because it's definitely not right. Even the neck thing definitely needs to go darker. So yeah, in most cases we need to go darker. That's it. So it's all about going darker. But even that way, it still looks fine. I mean, even from far. I definitely need to work on his eye, of this portion of the eye, because on this photo it's barely visible, and I believe I need to change a little bit lighting and actually make it a little bit more visible, just for the sake of creating better glaze. Because the fact that this area is just one big shape, I don't like it. Oh, maybe it will work. Maybe the reason why it's not working yet is because it's not that dark. So yeah, next session we will go much darker in values. Of course, we will add a little bit more proper colors and start to add a little bit more color variation, I believe, to make things a little bit more interesting. Because right now it's kind of consists of just one color. Not one, basically. We stayed within this range and within this kind of transition. So now we need to start to add a little bit more unique colors. Maybe we'll start to add some purples somewhere, like in transitional grays. So basically we're now going to use transitional grays to create a little bit more interesting colors here and there. It's going to be an interesting one. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see if I will do that or not. So yeah, I guess that's it for this part of the session. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Have a nice day or night, and see you in the next session. Bye. Bye, this is Bye 2, and again, tomorrow we'll continue with wrestling, we'll continue with CM Punk, and slowly but surely we will get there. And again, the more we'll create, the more experience we get, and at some point it will be much easier to go through all of this, and it's going to be much faster. So bear with me if you are with me. It's going to take some time through a couple of tryouts or trials again. going through trials, figuring out the errors, learning on those mistakes, and making better. So that's it. Thank you for watching again, and bye.